Hello, everybody. It's Mike Newberry, pastor at the First Baptist Church in Lincoln, Arkansas. Hey, guess where we're at? We're at the end of our study. We have been looking at the 12th chapter of Acts. And have we not found some exciting stuff? And have we not found some stuff that challenged us? I know when I initially came to this and felt led to preach through this chapter, the things that God taught me and how he spoke to my heart. And I hope that he's been able to do that for you. Well, we are finally now arriving at the end of the chapter. And I want to remind you of something I said at the beginning of the chapter. I told you that you and I need to notice the difference between how the chapter begins and how the chapter ends. And how it is so different and how we need to learn from that. And so we're going to talk more about that in just a second. And why it's so important that you and I read and study these stories that God has given us in the Bible. And so I'm going to read beginning at verse 18, and we're going to read through the rest of the chapter. Now, as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers of what was become of Peter. And when Herod had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down from Judea to Caesarea, and there abode. And Herod was highly displeased with them of Tyre and Sidon. But they came with one accord to him, and having made Blastus, the king's chamberlain, their friend, desired peace, because their country was nourished by the king's country. And upon a set day, Herod, arrayed in royal apparel, sat upon his throne, and made an oration unto them. And the people gave a shout, saying, It is the voice of a God, and not of man. And immediately the angel of the Lord smote him, because he gave not God the glory, and he was eaten of worms, and gave up the ghost. But the word of God grew and multiplied. And Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem, when they had fulfilled their ministry, and took with them John, whose surname was Mark. What a difference from how the chapter began. So I quote a writer telling us that. He said, at the beginning of chapter 12, Herod seemed to be in control, and the church was losing the battle. But at the end of the chapter, Herod is dead, and the church, very much alive, is growing rapidly. Oh, this is the great thing, folks, about having the entire revelation of God. And in a part of what I mean by the entire revelation of God is what you have in many of the Bible stories. You have, in many of the Bible stories, what is missing in our stories. And what is missing in our stories is the reason why we struggle at believing sometimes. And what is it that I'm talking about? I'm talking about an ending. You and I are still somewhere in the middle of our stories. And we still see what is out there in front of us with a big question mark. But you and I need to read and study the stories of the Bible. Why? Because it is the entire revelation of God. When we have read enough of the Bible stories, what needs to be our position? Upon reading of the Bible's great heroes, do we need still to be unsure about God's power and his providence? When you've read how God delivered Daniel from the lion's den, the 3 Hebrew children delivered from the fiery furnace, Gideon's 300 defeating an army with nothing but pitchers, lamps, and trumpets, of David slaying Goliath with a sling and a stone, of Moses leading Israel through the Red Sea, of Joshua's leading Israel's armies around Jericho's walls, of Elijah calling down fire. And here we have read about God delivering Peter from prison. But we know the greatest display of God's power was Jesus being nailed to a cross, placed in a tomb, and 3 days later he arose from the dead. Oh, how you and I need to see all of those stories and read them and study them and see how they ended. And because you and I see how God responded in all of those cases, and we know that he is the same God today as he was yesterday. We know that. And therefore it ought to bolster our own confidence. And we ought to be able to look out into the uncertainty of what is still out there in front of us, but at least remove the question mark and believe, dare to believe that our God is big enough and he is powerful enough. What should the reading and the studying of these stories do? They should fill us with confidence, with courage, and with boldness. Now, I don't mean confidence as in cockiness. Nor do I mean courage as in charging blindly and foolishly, and nor do I mean boldness as in being tactless. I mean confidence as in squaring your shoulders back, looking at a challenge head on with a smile on your face, leaning on God for strength, believing he is the same God yesterday, today, and forever, and the same way he delivered David from Goliath and Daniel from the lions and Peter from Herod, he will deliver you. I mean courage as the Bible in your hand and the gospel on your tongue, going wherever he sends you, talking to whoever he leads you to. I mean courage as believing greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I mean boldness as in being spirit-filled, a river of life flowing through you. I mean boldness as in expecting the challenges and not being surprised, angry, and bitter when they come. I mean boldness as in opening our mouths to defend the gospel that has been entrusted to us and being just like Jesus, that when it is said and done, that the world will say about us what they said about him. No person ever spoke like he did. Oh, isn't that the way you and I want the world to see us? How they want the world to respond to us. They may not believe what we preach, but they will not be able to resist the wisdom that we use in our speech. Oh, friends, we need that. God needs us to need that. What will the passing of time do? And I've said this to the church on so many occasions. With the passing of time, God will keep every promise that he's ever made to us. With the passing of time, the righteous will be saved, the sinners damned, and Jesus will be crowned Lord of all. But we know that we are not there yet. We know that we're still in the middle. And again, what looms out in front of us is uncertain. I mean, I wish it true. I wish you and I could dictate and tell God what to do, but we know we can't. You and I have learned, have we not, that you can't manipulate God. You can't twist his arm and make him perform. I mean, you and I need to come to the point that God is sovereign. He's going to do what he's going to do. But my friends, we shouldn't fear what he's going to do. We shouldn't believe that God is going to do what he's going to do and it's going to be bad for us. Oh, you and I ought to know that we serve and believe in a great, big, powerful God. But he's a God that's for us. He's for us. And when the dust settles and all of this is done, guess what? We're high and dry in the sweet by and by, and Jesus is crowned Lord of all. I grew up playing sports, and I have been in many a game where at some point prior to the end, my team was not winning. But when the final buzzer sounded, we won the game. And I have often said this. What team would you rather play on? Would you rather play on a team that at any moment seemed to be winning, but was destined to lose? Or would you rather play on a team that at any given moment it seemed as if they were losing, but they were destined to win? Oh, my friends, I can tell you that I was a lot happier in all of those games when we won at the end, rather than any way I felt of being ahead or behind at any point prior to that. So we are going to notice now the end of the chapter. And I've heard people react to how sad it was that these soldiers had to die, that Herod put them to death. And we're going to address that in just a few seconds. But the first thing that I want to bring out is the fact that there are two teams. And you and I have to choose which team we're going to play on. We have to. There are two teams. One team is the team that is against God. It's referred to as the world in the Bible. It's seen as being on sides with the devil. And it's seen as just being somebody that you're not a Christian, that you've not made the choice to get saved. My friends, just because you have not verbally said no to Jesus, but because you haven't said yes, your answer is still no. So there are two teams, and you and I have to choose. I want you to notice these two teams that we're seeing in our text. And our message today is going to be seen in all the characters that you and I are finding here at the end of the chapter. And we're going to have to notice that they've chosen the wrong team. And that was their crime. That was their error. On one team, note these players, the soldiers, the citizens of Tyre and Sidon, Blastus, the king's chamberlain, the people who gave a shout, and then you have King Herod. On the other team, you have Peter, the people in church, Barnabas, Paul, John Mark, the angel of the Lord, and you have the Word of God. I want to remind you of something we read at the beginning of our message. We quoted the writer saying at the beginning of chapter 12, Herod seemed to be in control, and the church was losing the battle. How many times have you heard the cliche that things aren't always the way they seem? And isn't that the way you and I need to respond to whatever moment might be happening in our lives? That even though it looks this way right now, it is not the same when all of this is done. My friends, here is the faith that you need to exercise. Even though it may look as if the devil is winning and Jesus is losing, but you still need to join the side of Jesus. Why? Because in faith you know he must and will win. And so because of that act of faith, you say no to the devil and you say yes to Jesus Christ. Join the right team. That's the mistake that we're finding these people made at the ending of this chapter. So number one, we have the soldiers. Have you ever thought about the length they went to in holding Peter in jail. Verse 4 told us that he was being watched by 4 quaternions of soldiers. Now that means there were 4 squads of 4 soldiers that rotated every 4 or so hours. What was Peter? What kind of criminal was he? He was a preacher. I can understand putting a serial killer in a more secure part of the prison, of not giving him much freedom or access. I can understand that. But what was Peter? Folks, he was a preacher. Was this the first time that God ever broke Peter out of jail? Let me go back to chapter 5 of the book of Acts and read to you what it says, beginning at verse 17. And again, don't you know this was a story that was famous among the soldiers about this preacher? It says, "Then the high priest rose up, and all they that were with him, which is the sect of the Sadducees, and were filled with indignation, laid their hands on the apostles and put them in the common prison. But the angel of the Lord by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth and said, 'Go, stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this life.' And when they heard that, they entered into the temple early in the morning and taught. But the high priest came, and they that were with him, and called the council together and all the senate of the children of Israel, and sent to the prison to have them brought. But when the officers came and found them not in the prison, they returned and told, saying, 'The prison truly found we shut with all safety, and the keeper standing without before the doors. But when we had opened, we found no man within.' Now when the high priest and the captain of the temple and the chief priest heard these things, they doubted of them whereunto this would grow. Then came one and told them, saying, 'Behold, the men whom you put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people.'" Don't you know that became a famous story, especially among the soldiers? Soldiering was an honorable profession. And I really think that there were some soldiers in the ranks who truly did want to do right. In Luke chapter 3, verses 10 to 14, you read a passage where John the Baptist is preaching. And in that message, he addresses soldiers. He addresses them and he gives them several little things about how they were to live and how they were to act and how they were to think and how they were to treat people. Why do you think John the Baptist did that? Is it not because he had soldiers in his audience and they were there? Why? Because they wanted to do right. So again, I'll say that soldiering was an honorable profession. Now, you and I might read what we're reading here in Acts chapter 12, and we might want to declare that that was not fair. These soldiers did not deserve to die. What is it that they did that was so wrong? Can I tell you what they did that was wrong? They did what so many others have done and are still doing right now. They chose the wrong team. They were on the wrong side. Now again, you might want to declare, well, I have never said no to God. But because you've not said yes, you have said no. And that's your error. You are on the wrong side. You're on the wrong team. I want to believe that there were some good soldiers. But can I read between the lines a little bit? Would you allow me to do that? Would you allow me to use my sanctified imagination? When the announcement was made for this assignment, when the word was put out by Herod and his associates that they needed these soldiers to perform this assignment, I wonder if a conversation might have taken place between some soldiers that could have possibly sounded something like this. And the conversation is going to be between a good soldier and a bad one. Good soldier, what's going on? Bad soldier, King Herod is looking for soldiers to guard this prisoner. Sounds like an easy assignment. 4 squads working 4-hour shifts, 2 standing guard, and 2 chained to the prisoner. Good soldier. I think I heard something about this. King Herod killed a Christian named James, and he saw how it pleased the Jews, and then he went and arrested Peter. Hey, Peter's that guy that not long ago they had him in jail, and presto, next morning he's gone. Dude, if you got any vacation time, you'd better take it. You don't want this assignment. I don't care who King Herod thinks he is. He's bitten off more than he can chew this time. Bad soldier. I don't believe in that stuff. Easy work. Easy money. Why did these soldiers get killed? Why? They hadn't committed no real crime. King Herod was the evil one who took a visible place, obviously, against the church. The soldiers were just putting in an honest day's work. I'll agree with you. They didn't deserve to die, but why did they die? Because they chose the wrong team, and that was their error. Then we're told about Tyre and Sidon. Our verses tell us that they had done something to make Herod mad. The Bible says they were motivated to get back in his good graces because they depended upon him for their necessities. I wonder how many of us are like that. I realize we live in uncertain times. And I realize I might be talking to somebody that your cupboard is getting a little bare. That I understand that you've got a bill, and if you don't pay it, the electricity is going to get shut off. I understand we live in that kind of world. We're afraid to ruffle the wrong feathers because we know that if we do, we could be in a world of hurt. But I think there's something we've got to realize. There's no middle ground between these two teams. You desire peace, but between these two teams, there is none. Do we understand that? Do we understand that Jesus said, you're either for me or you're against me? And we cannot exist in that somewhere in between. That our allegiances have to clearly be on Jesus' side. No matter what that's going to cost. No matter if we're in the midst of an emergency, it still needs to be clear that I'm on the side of Jesus. Tyre and Sidon, what did they do? And they had ruffled wrong feathers, but the wrong feathers were Herod, and they thought Herod was the one that pulled all the strings. Herod was the one that made all the decisions. Herod was the one that was making them buy food, but it wasn't Herod at all. It was the kind, gracious, merciful God in heaven. Folks, if you got food to eat, God gave it to you. If you got money in the bank, God gave it to you. If you're breathing in a breath that is pain-free, God gave it to you. Every beat of your heart is from God. Every day that you live and everything continues to be fine, it is God. And you and I need to clearly Let it be seen in how we live and how we act and the places we go, that we are on God's team. We're on his side. Then we have Blastus. Listen to the way it is written in verse 20. And Herod was highly displeased with them of Tyre and Sidon, but they came with one accord to him, and having made Blastus the king's chamberlain their friend, desired peace because their country was nourished by the king's country. Sounds like they're implying they offered a bribe. And this bribe was offered to Blastus that he would then go and be the in-between between them and Herod. Why does the world operate like this? Because everyone only thinks of right now. People only see the immediate. And they're making decisions based upon how that immediate moment looks. And they don't bother to look at how that decision is going to ripple into the future. Can I give you a character in the Bible that did that and it cost him dearly? His name was Esau. Esau traded his birthright for a bowl of soup. I mean, you and I all understand the idea of investment and return. And we understand that we are willing to invest in a moment because of how sure we feel about a future return of that investment. And we are willing to do without the resources in the moment, again, because of how sure we are about the return in the future. And how many people are doing that very thing, but they're doing it in the wrong way. Why? Because they're investing in the moment, but they're investing against the sure return that is coming. Esau did that. Why did Esau make this foolish decision? Why? Because he was hungry. I mean, here's the amazing thing I see about Esau. Esau got his bowl of soup. He ate it, and for the moment, his hunger pains went away. But some 5-6 hours or so later, he was suffering from the very same pains that caused him to invest his birthright to begin with. Folks, one of these days, Jesus is coming. One of these days, the book of Daniel says it that way. One of these days, a stone cut out without hands that represents the kingdom of heaven will come and strike all the kingdoms of this world and grind them into nothing and then grow into the kingdom of heaven, and it will become the only thing that exists. That's going to happen someday. And too many people are going to have to, and too many people will have to face the truth that you made these kinds of decisions. That you said no to God, and you said no because all you saw was the immediate. All you saw was the moment. Friends, we do need to let our minds think about heaven, about hell, about eternity, about God, about the Bible, about Jesus Christ, about the cross, about sin, about salvation. I mean, such things ought to be put into the equation of how you and I are living every day, the decisions we're making every day. These things need to be put into the equation. They need to become a part of the process that you and I are involved in how we're choosing to live. One of these days, you're going to be made very, very sad if you went through your entire human existence and you never did this. You never allowed heaven or hell to enter your mind. There is a heaven to gain, and there is a hell to shun. And Jesus Christ is the only way to do both. Blastus. He was Herod's friend. And he lived in the moment along with Tyre and Sidon. And they made their choices. Then we have this group of people who heard Herod give his speech. And they were the ones that gave a shout and placed upon Herod the label of deity. You sound like a god and not a man. Let's think about the crowd. If we're not careful, we can be dazed and dazzled by all that glitters in this world. If we're not careful, we will clamor for the attention of all of those who seem to be on top. But there is one that we always should seek. He's on the throne. He has always been on the throne. He will always be on the throne. Oh God, help us to look to you for everything and trust you for everything. There's nothing wrong with wanting to better yourself, but if God doesn't give it to you in ways and means that are honorable, then please do not love it so much that you would seek to win it in ways that are dishonorable. Again, I'll say there's nothing wrong with bettering yourself, but don't let the love of it cause you to get on the wrong side of the fence. No matter what life is doing to us, it always needs to be crystal clear of what side of the line I'm standing on. It always needs to be crystal clear. I am with Jesus. Why? Because the people in our story, what was the one wrong thing they did? They chose the wrong side. And I'm standing here today, I'm sitting here today, pleading with somebody that you need by faith to see who is going to win in the end. And it's Jesus. And by faith, go ahead and declare him winner and come and join his team. You need to make that decision right now. Don't wait. One of the lies of Satan is you've got plenty of time. But again, what is that? It's a lie. Time is something that we don't have more of, but we've got less of. Every day we live is one day less. But if you're hearing this right now, you're hearing it. Why? Because God is giving you an opportunity to make this decision. Come join his team. Finally, then, we have Herod himself. Finally, we come to the boss hog himself. King Herod walks out dressed in his finest. He enjoys the spotlight. He's enjoying the moment. But you need to hear me. The moment soon passes. It is appointed unto man once to die. And after that comes the judgment. Here's the conclusion. James is in heaven. Peter is out of prison. The word of God grew and multiplied. Paul and Barnabas with John Mark at their side is on their way on another missionary journey. There have been many Herods along the way. Always there have been those who tried to stamp out God. They tried to stamp out the Bible, stamp out Jesus, stamp out the church, stamp out the Christian faith. But each one, no exceptions, have failed. No matter how strong or determined they appeared to be in the moment, not one has ever succeeded. Through it all, the church marches on with Jesus, our captain, at the helm. I'm talking to somebody that right now you have declared war on God for whatever reason. For whatever reason, you're like Herod. You're not like these others in the story. That you're just trying to get through life. But you are Herod, and it is obvious that you are against God, that you are an unbeliever. And I'm pleading with you that you need to understand that you're not fighting God. God is letting you fight him. You continue to exist, and it's a clear picture that he truly is a God of mercy and a God of patience. But you too are running out of time. And you too need to come and understand the error of your way. You too will come to a point just like Herod. A moment that you don't expect. A moment that will come right out of left field. God said to the foolish farmer, after he made his plans to build bigger barns and eat and drink and be merry, God told that foolish farmer, you're a fool. Because this night, your soul is required of you. And I'm telling you, that moment is coming for all of us. For some of us, it will be out there in the future, but you have been told by a doctor it is coming. And its arrival did come, and you're seeing it. But then for some of us, death's invasion will be sudden. Oh, how many of us, even here recently, have heard stories of people, one moment alive, the next moment dead. It is appointed unto a man once to die. And after that, you face God. There are two teams. Only one of those teams is going to win. And that team is Jesus. And you need to choose him. God bless you. Thanks for being a part of this journey through Acts chapter 12. We're going somewhere new next time. We're going to begin looking at the 4 cheers of Jesus. 4 places where Jesus said, be of good cheer. Tune in. It'll be good. Bye.